Good evening and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My fabulous co-host, Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour 2 years ago. Yes, 2 years ago now, just to help people stay connected, gathering around this virtual campfire, telling each other tales. And we've just been doing it every Wednesday because it's been that much fun. And we've had that much fun with these two authors that we've asked both of them back. They've both been on before. So all of you, I'd like you to please welcome Amanda J. McGee and KG Anderson. I am so proud that I did not say KG Anderson McGee like I really thought I was going to for a minute there. And formula's the same. They're going to read for their favorite nonprofit. And we're also grateful and glad that you're here with us tonight. If you are fortunate enough to help others out, please consider a donation to tonight's featured nonprofits. One is the SIFWA, that's SFWA, Emergency Medical Fund, and Sierra Club. KG Anderson is reading for the SIFWA Emergency Medical Fund. The Emergency Medical Fund, which they call EMF, probably not thinking about the earworm it's going to be for everybody who was around in 1990, was established to help genre writers pay medical expenses not otherwise covered by insurance, which, as you know, a lot of writers don't really have. The fund is meant to cover only short-term emergency situations that interfere with the ability to write, and you can learn more at sfwa.org. Amanda J. McGee is reading for Sierra Club. The Sierra Club is the most enduring and influential grassroots environmental organization in the United States. It has the power of millions of members and supporters to defend everyone's right to a healthy world. You can learn more at sierraclub.org. If you are here on Zoom, feel free to leave your camera on. It can be really nice to see your smiling faces or terrified faces, depending on what we're reading. And chime in on the text chat on the right of the Zoom if you like. And if you're joining us on Facebook, thank you. We're so glad you're here, and we're really sorry, but we just can't keep up with the messages right now. And I also have a special announcement tonight, which is that we have a high probability of cats. So please watch carefully when our readers are on. KG Anderson, are you ready?
I am.
Let me do the introductions then. KG Anderson lives in a fishing community on the edge of Seattle with bookseller Tom Whitmore, his vast collection of books and ephemera, and their clatter of complicated cats. She writes web content by day and fiction by night, and she gardens whenever it stops raining. Her speculative fiction appears in magazines, anthologies, and podcasts, including Galaxy's Edge, Starship Sofa, Far-Fetched Fables, and The Overcast. For links to more of her stories, visit writerway.com/fiction. Karen, aka KG, welcome.
Thank you. Shall I start in?
Would you? I'd love that.
I will. What I'm reading tonight is a story that appeared in the anthology Triangulation Beneath the Surface. And the story is called Unraveling. Sarah, he's using you. My voice rose into the whine my daughter loathed, but I couldn't stop. I pressed the phone to my ear. You are 16. I absolutely forbid. My runaway daughter informed me that she hated me. Have fun with the old witches, she said, and hung up. I climbed out of the car, slammed the battered door, and slumped against the sun-baked metal. Gradually, my heartbeat slowed, but it still felt frighteningly uneven. Failure, 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 it thumped. A crow cawed and the soft breeze rustled the pine trees surrounding my great-aunt's summer cottage. I thought about phoning Sarah's father for help, but my ex had long since given up on our daughter. I reached to the open car window, pulled out my shabby purse, and rummaged savagely for my cigarettes, until I remembered I'd quit smoking 2 months ago. The sounds of kids playing drifted up from the lake. Ollie, Ollie, and comfrey, sang a little girl. Squeals of excitement. A child's voice shrieked, Mommy! And my head went up. Sarah? Of course not. My Sarah hadn't played here in years. A hot tear splashed on my blouse, soaking through to my breast. I wiped my cheeks and glanced over at the old cottage. 2 metal chairs stood empty on the sagging front porch. My great aunts Helen and Nessie were inside, playing gin rummy and waiting for me. I'd gone into town to get us food for dinner, a rotisserie chicken and a package of rolls. Nessie would overcook some vegetables to go with it. I pulled the bag of groceries from the back seat and crossed the pine needle lawn, pasting a smile on my face that claimed, everything's fine. I mentally rehearsed telling them that Sarah was working an internship at an art gallery in the city, that she'd wish she could come, if only. Their hearts would have broken to hear her call them old witches. The screen door slammed behind me, and Helen and Nessie looked up from the rummy melds they'd spread on the kitchen table. Finish, finish, I said. While I put the groceries away, sweet, slow Helen was carefully picking up the cards. Sharp-nosed Nessie bustled, making another pot of tea. She poured me a cup, slopping a bit into the saucer. Ellie, what's wrong? She drew a finger along her cheek, mirroring the tear track she'd noticed on mine. Oh, it's Sarah. You know, teenagers. I couldn't bear to tell them the truth. I picked up your mail, I said, eager to change the subject. Reaching into my purse, I pulled out a batch of envelopes and put them on the table. Did you go down to the beach while I was in town? The beach? Helen's laugh ended in a sigh. The beach? Oh, Ellie, we're a little old for that. I don't think we've gone to the beach since Reba died, Nessie said. We sit on the porch in the mornings. Reba, dark and mischievous, had died 2 years ago, and since then her sisters had aged rapidly. Their lakeside house, for so many years the gathering place for the Steins and the Kettermans, had grown shabby and quiet. Nephews and nieces seemed too busy to visit them. That bastard! Nessie, her lips pursed, thrust a letter at Helen. Look at this, the momser. Helen took the page, adjusted her glasses, and read quickly. Then she placed the letter on the table, her knobby hands brushing flat the sheets as if she could smooth away the harsh news. So, Ellie, your cousin Harold is making us sell the cottage, she said. Living up here at the lake is too much for us, he says. He thinks we'd like a nursing home better. Nessie growled. Reba will be spinning in her grave. Oh, I felt guilty. I already knew about Harold's plan. He'd called me and tried to enlist me in his scheme to get at their property. I wondered if the great aunts knew how valuable their land had become, with million-dollar weekend retreats going up all around them. They let Harold handle the deal. They'd never find out. I hadn't liked Harold much, but I wasn't about to get in the middle of the family drama. It's hard to imagine you moving out of this house, I said diplomatically. The great aunts exchanged looks. That's what we want to talk to you about, said Nessie. Moving? I was confused. I wish the house could stay in the family, but I couldn't possibly buy it. After my divorce, I haven't. Nessie flapped a large beringed hand at me. No, she said. It's Helen, we need to show her. After dinner, Helen said. The cold roasted chicken was accompanied by Nessie's thoroughly boiled green beans and followed by coffee ice cream, our family favorite. I cleared the table and, over their protest, washed the plates and put them in the countertop dish strainer, just as I'd done hundreds of times before. Then I made a fresh pot of tea. But when I brought it to the table, Nessie stood up and gestured to me. I followed the 2 old girls as they shuffled down the hallway toward the living room. I was trying to imagine what they had to show me. A quilt, maybe, a lamp, some old family heirloom that had miraculously survived all the summers with the cousins up here. But Nessie surprised me by stopping halfway down the hall. She fished a key from her apron pocket. Fumbling, she unlocked a door in the hallway. A closet I'd never noticed? She opened the door to reveal a narrow staircase of worn painted wood. She leaned out over the stairs to pull a string, and a bare light bulb, the fixture high on the wall, came on. I'm going to let her look, Nessie said to Helen. Look at what? I wondered. Go on. They stood back and I went down the dim stairs, grasping the thin metal railing attached to the wall on the left side. To my right was open space and darkness. Apparently, this cellar had no windows. That would explain why the cousins and I had never seen it from the outside. I peered into the depths, my eyes gradually adjusting to the dimness. The staircase went down not to a floor, but into a sea of what appeared to be tangled foliage. I hesitated, went down 2 more steps, and bent to touch the odd material. It was string or rope or some sort of dark yarn. There appeared to be bushels of it. There was no telling how deep it went. The staircase vanished into it like a spoon in a pot of soup. A smell of old, slightly damp wool drifted up from the tangles. I sniffed cautiously and wrinkled my nose. I turned and looked back up at Nessie. She was silhouetted by the red evening light at the top of the stairs. What on earth is this stuff? Come back up and we'll explain, said Nessie. She sounded tired. I hurried up, relieved when Nessie locked that door behind us. We returned to the kitchen table. Nessie seemed reluctant to start. She gestured toward the teapot, and I poured for her and for me, Helen having shaken her head and taken up her knitting. Ellie, do you remember Cousin Esther? Nessie asked me as I drank from my cup. Schweig! Helen shushed her. She stood up and lumbered in her black orthopedic sandals to the back door and closed it. Someone might hear. When Helen returned to the table, Nessie began again. Cousin Esther was a woman disappointed with her life. I brushed some crumbs away from my elbows and leaned forward, puzzled. I had a vague memory of Esther, elegant and sour, but what could she have to do with the vast sea of yarn in their cellar? It started out so well for Esther, Nessie said. A good marriage to a lovely man, a Yiddisher Kopf with a good business. Esther had 3 children, but her favorite was her daughter Shulamit. Nessie stared at me. Don't you remember, Ellie? Don't you remember about Shulamit? Suddenly it all came back to me. I was a kid when it happened, but I remembered my mother going pale when she read the paper at the breakfast table. It was just a few months after Shulamit had married the senator's son. They were flying in his private plane to Martha's Vineyard. The plane went down in Long Island Sound. There were no survivors. The plane crashed, I said softly as Nessie and Helen nodded. Shulamit died. Cousin Esther, she went crazy with grief. That's not exactly what happened to Esther. Across the table, Helen stopped knitting and cast a worried look at the door. Nessie leaned close. Esther went to the triad and asked for another life. The triad? Some witches? Oh, poor woman, I said. She'd really gone nuts. Not so much, said Nessie. Ellie, in those days, the witches were powerful. People came to them for a new life, and poof, Nessie rocked her squat body back in her chair. They vanished. Ugh, I'd had about enough of this witches nonsense. The great aunts had been born in the old country. They still believed in the triad. As kids, we'd been frightened of the stories about 3 women with the power to unravel your life and make you start over again. Oh, if only. You know, I don't remember Cousin Esther vanishing, I told Nessie. Of course not, Nessie agreed, but there was nothing agreeable about her tone. She took a sip of tea and went on. When Esther asked for a new life, the witches told her no. They told her she was already living her new life. She had already asked for a new life and had been given it. The life where Shulamit dies was it. Well, wasn't that a clever trick? The skeptical expression on my face gave me away. Not a trick, Nessie said, as if she'd read my mind. She shook her head and fixed me with cold eyes. The witches took out a photo album and showed Esther. She tapped her forefinger on the table as if on a page. The pictures of Esther's first life. Oh, she'd been Nat's wife and a mother, but with just one child, a shy boy named Jonathan. He lived the life of a scholar, never married. The witches showed Esther a letter she'd sent Jonathan on her 75th birthday. The poor man had asked her if there were anything she would have done differently if she could have lived her life over. She wrote back, I'd have had more children because you are such a disappointment. Esther went to the triad at 75 and asked for a new life with more children, and she was given it. I shivered. A cool breeze was sweeping up from the lake. I stood up and closed the kitchen window. Ellie, how do you suppose we know this? Came Nessie's voice from behind me. Reluctantly, I turned. In the dark kitchen, Nessie's face was no longer old, but timeless. Beside her, Helen sat silent, eyes cast down at the knitting in her lap. Nessie watched me as I walked back to the table and sat down. You want me to believe that you two are witches? I asked, thinking, oh boy, if Harold finds out about all this crazy, he's going to petition for guardianship and put these two in the nursing home. I mean, aren't there supposed to be 3 witches? Nessie and Helen looked at me and waited. Reba, I thought. Oh God, she was the 3rd witch. All that yarn in the cellar? Nessie made a sound that might have been a laugh. That's from the lives we've unraveled. You'd be surprised just how many people still come to the triad for help. Not just old people either. People just like you. I shook my head, appalled at the direction this was taking. So what, you think I need your help with Sarah? Maybe, Helen's voice broke in, but that's beside the point. She paused, turning to her sister. Nessie, we should have told Ellie earlier. I know. Told me what? I asked. I put down my tea, now overbrewed and bitter. Told you, said Nessie. Told Ellie, it's time for you to take Reba's place in the triad. You're a witch, an unraveler. You can change people's lives. You were born with that power, and we're going to show you how it works. I sat stunned for a moment and then shrugged, hoping to shake off their words. The great aunts were worse off than I'd thought. I don't want to be a witch. I tried to chuckle, but it came out as a nervous giggle. Other people's lives? I've made a mess of my own life. I've made a mess of Sarah's. I don't want the responsibility. We'll teach you the skills, Nessie pushed on, how to listen, how to advise, and the spells of transformation, how to set the time and date at which your client's life will spin off into another lifetime. Her matter-of-fact tone made the patent craziness seem almost real. No, I said, no, I'm sorry. I don't want any part of this. Nessie's face turned dark. She slapped the table. Maybe it doesn't matter what you want, Ellie. I tell you, you were born to this, and with Reba gone, we need you. I argued with them late into the night. I need to go back to the city, I finally told them. Fine, go. Nessie stood up, turned her back to me, and went down the hallway to her bedroom, leaving Helen and me alone at the table. Helen took a deep breath and clasped her hands, pausing as if for prayer. She mumbled a few words to herself before she spoke. Ellie, I remember the day my own great aunts told the 3 of us that we would become a triad so many years ago in Kovno. How did you feel about it? It was different then. It was. Helen shook her head and smiled sadly. I don't think you can mention. But she was wrong. With Nessie out of the room, I found it possible to imagine this gentle old woman had magical powers. Can a witch change her own life? I'd been wondering. I mean, could I go back to the days when Sarah was young and I was offered that job in California and I could have left and made a new life for us? Could I send myself back? Helen shook her head and laughed. No, you can't send yourself back. I nodded. Well, no surprise. Helen leaned close and whispered, but I can send you there. She closed the wrinkled lids over her cloudy brown eyes for a moment, and when she reopened them, her pupils were brighter and clear. We'll have to hurry, she said. Nessie's set on you completing the triad, but I don't want to. I know. Helen got up and went to the old sideboard and quietly slid open a drawer. She came back clutching a pair of yellowed ivory needles. Clasp your hands, she whispered. Then she reached over, smelling faintly of sandalwood, and put my clasped hands on my lap. Blame noch, stay still. She held her needles above my hands and began knitting. There was no yarn, but Helen's needles clicked faster and faster. The room went dark, and then I felt threads flowing out of my fingertips. There was the occasional flash of pain, a tug as if the yarn had become knotted. Had I told Helen how far back I wanted to go? I tried to speak, but I couldn't. Helen's needles clicked, and my past flowed out from my fingers, spilling onto the floor. The next morning at breakfast, I kissed the old girls goodbye, ducking their invitation to have coffee and whole grain rolls with them. I figured I'd stop for a latte and a croissant in the village. I paused on the broad front porch to enjoy the dramatic view down to the lake shore. I ran my hand along the gleaming finish of the new railing. With the ramp up from the driveway, the new lighting, and the bathroom remodel, Nessie and Helen would be able to stay here for a few more years. And after that, I'd have it as a vacation home. It was a sound investment. The new Lexus had been a good choice, too. The car's leather seats were pleasantly warm in the morning sunlight. Before starting the car, I pulled my phone from my bag and texted Doug to let him know I'd be just a few minutes late for lunch at our favorite Thai place in Westchester. Driving down the hill toward the lake, I lowered the car windows and savored the soft breeze. I slowed as I drove past the beach. Kids in bright-colored bathing suits scampered along at the edge of the sun-dappled water, squealing with delight. The shady roadway ahead went blurry as my eyes filled with tears. There were times when I wished I'd had children. Thank you.
Ah, Karen, I loved that. You did all the voices so beautifully too. You could really tell that they all came from you in some way, not just being read aloud. Ah, amazing. It is our habit at Story Hour to take a breath between the stories. And next, we have Amanda J. McGee. Amanda J. McGee is a map maker by day and a writer by night. She has degrees from Hollins University and Virginia Tech, where she studied languages, identity politics, policy, and infrastructure. She is the author of the dark epic fantasy series, The Creation Saga, blogs on books, movies, anime, and writing advice, and is one half of the podcast Pop Fizz. Her novella Viridian was published in the anthology A Sinister Quartet, which made the 2020 Locus recommended reading list. Really interesting book, folks. When not writing, Amanda can be found climbing silks or hiking mountains, depending on the season. She lives in Southwest Virginia with the love of her life, 2 fluffy cats, and a plethora of plants. You can find out more at on her website at amandajmcgee.com. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. I am reading tonight from a story titled Your Wounds, a Constellation. There are some content warnings for this story, so just for those who are mindful of those kinds of things, there is some kind of intimations of sexual violence in some of the stories. So, the third time Zeus found me, I did not remember him at all. I was 14 and had gone down the river with some of the other girls from my father's house. It was the end of summer, and I would not be a girl for long. My father had said I would be married soon, for now my body was my own. But for now, my body was my own. My skin was dark with sun, nearly the color of the rich river mud between my toes, the hair between my thighs, curly and black. I remember looking down at my feet, at my legs, at the flat plane of my stomach. I remember the joy of the sun on my skin, of the water's cool relief. There was a crack of lightning from the clear sky. The other girls fled up the hill, back to safety. The thunder rattled my bones, but I don't remember being afraid. A man stepped out of the lightning as if it were a doorway to another place. He was a young man, but still far older than I was. His hair was long and curly past his shoulders, a black that shimmered blue in the light, and his eyes were blue too, piercing in his pale face. The myths would later say he came to me as a swan, but of course you cannot trust myths. They are the stories powerful people tell of history, and who is more powerful than the king of the gods? Zeus took me in his arms and pressed his lips to mine. He smelled of ozone and high mountain flowers, and I felt something alight in me as if this stranger's body were as familiar as my own. But I was just a girl, and I had never known a man. I was too astonished to kiss him back. It didn't make any difference to him. Afterwards, as we lay in the grass, as I tried to understand what had happened and the strange feelings sparking through my body, Zeus said to me, "You were different this time, Io." "Who is Io?" I asked. The swirl of emotions in my gut at the name threatened to engulf me. Zeus raised himself to one arm, curled his body over me. His gaze was piercing as he searched my eyes. "You don't remember me," he said. I didn't. But I did, didn't I? I let him touch me, even as my heart pounded. Did I know him? Zeus touched my face. "Perhaps it's for the best," he said. There was a call from up the hill, and Zeus slipped into the water of the river in a burst of white feathers, leaving me alone in the grass. I married Tyndareus not long after that and grew a child in my womb. I did not know who had been the father, but Tyndareus never asked. He was a good husband, and I was happy. And perhaps this is why Helen, my sweet pale girl whose eyes were as blue as the sky, perhaps that is why she was taken by Paris, stolen over the sea to Troy. I was a woman grown then, and I had defended our home before when need called. Sparta was a martial land and trained its women well. When he left for war, Tyndareus kissed my brow. I begged him to take me with him, but not every man is strong enough to see a woman with a sword. Tyndareus feared our allies would abandon us if I strode the field with him. "My strong Leda," he said, "someone must stay here to guard our children, to rule our polis. I can trust no one else." And he was right. I wept, but I did not let him see. When he had been on the sea for a week, perhaps when he found that distant war at last, that foreign shore, perhaps on the day his foot touched sand, Zeus came to me again. I had thought him a strangeness, a dream, despite the blue of my daughter's eyes. Yet when I saw him, as I walked by the sea alone and pining, I knew I had been lying to myself for years. My husband died in the war, but not before I dishonored us both by succumbing to a god's touch. I know now how I loved him as Io, how I loved him in other lives too. It is easy for a mortal to love a god. They fill up the hollow places, but it was more than that. We were bound together, he and I, by older rules and covenants. When Zeus came to me the 5th time, I had long red hair and freckles under my eyes. The 5th time was the time I came to hate Zeus, though I would not remember it for lives yet. It is easy for a mortal to hate a god. They cast such long shadows, gods, shine so brightly down from the heavens. They do not know want, only wanting, and their wantings are cruel. I was a woman already when Zeus came to me, though I had eschewed a husband, much to my mother Harmonia's dismay. It meant she had me to take care of her, though. I wandered the forests and gathered herbs and other forage for us, grew some crops and kept bees for honey. It wasn't an easy life, not the life of a princess, as the stories say. Perhaps that is why it took so long for him to find me. Perhaps his workings had gone awry to place me in a small village with a mother to look after. But find me he did, the sky god. This time Zeus came to me as a man, a mortal man, and perhaps that is why things worked out the way they did. When he held me in his arms, I felt safe. I felt in his breath on my hair, not the high air between the clouds, but the warm breezes of summer. And when I became pregnant with his child, I only feared that he would marry me. But Zeus merely laughed. I have a wife, Semele, though I do not love her as I do you. So casually he broke my heart and lifted it up all at once. My mother and I lived not far from a village, a small one on the border of the territories claimed by Thebes. I took honey from the hives we kept in town when it was time for harvest, trekking the long paths with heavy clay jars full of bounty tied tightly to my back. And in the summer after Zeus had come to me, I met a woman there. I thought her someone's grandmother, but she became a close friend, always trading for at least 3 of my jars with good salty cheese and olives and flour. Her name was Beroe. I thought her an honored grandmother of some affluent family and never questioned where she came by such fine goods. Everyone knows this tale, how Beroe was secretly the jealous Hera, how she tricked me into being murdered. But that's not how it happened. What happened is that my belly rounded with child. What happened is that when Beroe touched my belly on the first day of fall, she flinched back and looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. Then Hera, goddess of childbirth, stood before me in a gown of peacock feathers. There was no transition. One moment she was my friend, and one moment she was a goddess, as she had always been. I could have screamed, but there was no one around that would hear. The village moved around me as if I had vanished, and Hera too, all eyes turning away as if there was nothing to see. Semele, she said to me, your lover is my husband Zeus. I felt my breath catch, my knees quake, but her face was expressionless as she told me, as if it meant nothing to her. For a moment, I felt a dizzying relief, but then she spoke again. Your child will be a god, one powerful enough to unseat him from his throne. If I had been terrified before, I was ice, I was stone. I already loved the baby in my belly. It had been easy to love a child made from love. But everyone knows the stories, too, of how Zeus eats his children, just as his father Cronus did. He will suffer no rivals. Hera offered to hide me away, but I could not leave my mother. So we came to a compromise. She would keep Zeus distracted for a time. Time moves so quickly for gods, she said, that it should be no trouble. I would have the baby and hide it away in her care, and there would be nothing to fear. But only a few days later, Zeus came to me again. Everyone has heard this story too. They say that Hera tricked me into looking on Zeus's face and that his power struck me down. The last part is true. Zeus touched my belly and felt the power of the god growing there. His eyes lit from within. He burned me from the inside out. He made my son ash. After all, he could always find me again in the next life. The 7th time Zeus found me, my father needed a son. Men were not always so particular about their inheritance. In my first life, a long time ago, before Hera married her husband and Zeus became king of the gods, it was not this way. I can remember it now, the days when Demeter was his equal on earth, before temples to the sky god and his jealous, beaten wife became ubiquitous, before the earth spurned him and became something to conquer rather than court. My father raised me a boy named me Ganymede, and I learned sword work instead of sewing, and it was enough for me. It was enough. I swore to myself it would be, though I watched the other girls sometimes and wondered what it might be like to be their friend, to be honestly myself and not give anything up. I wanted to be a girl with a sword, not a boy, but I was dutiful. It was my besetting sin in that life. When Zeus came to me, I was hunting. My body was rangy and lean, my skin copper, the muscles of my arms pleasing to my eyes. I was tall, my breast bound, and no one yet knew that I might be other than what I seemed, that I might be a woman at all. I drew back the bow, sighting down the line of it, seeking the brown shoulder of the hind I had tracked into the cool beneath the trees. But I could feel eyes on my skin, and when I loosed the arrow, it flew wide, burying itself in the dirt. He landed on a branch as a white eagle, the spray of feathers drawing my eye. My skin prickled as I lowered my bow. Some memory, a shadow of it, crept through the veil of death. Then Zeus was before me, his long hair black, the curls well oiled. He wore a toga of rich purple, and I knew him a god. I fell to my knees in the loam of the forest floor, made my voice gruff. Divine One, have I trespassed? A finger on my chin. I shuddered. He looked down at me contemplatively. Again, my love. His eyes studied me. I had heard stories of women touched by the gods. I was a prince and learned of Io made a cow and cursed by Hera, of Semele burned by Zeus's brilliance, of Callisto turned into a bear. There are no happy endings for the lover of a god, but I felt something blossom in me at his touch, a flower unfolding. It terrified me. Do you know me? He asked. No, the words died in my throat. I felt an eerie echo, as if I had lived this moment before, beneath this same sharp gaze. His eyes sparked with amusement. He leaned to me, pressed his mouth to mine, his tongue delving deep, and I let him in. He took me to Olympus. The stories say Olympus is a high mountain, and that is true. Yet you cannot climb to it with mortal feet. It is above the world, a mountain that can only be found by the slipping ways of gods. I lived there for... It is impossible to know how time has passed in Olympus. There is no summer or winter in that place. There are days and nights, but all are clear as crystal, perfectly beautiful and unchanging. The beings there shine like stars, and Zeus is not the most radiant of them, not always. He has storm clouds too, the god of the sky. I slept in my own bed, in a shadow amidst the glowing hall, a cupboard of the gods. And sometimes at night, Zeus would visit me. He would unbind my breast and strip me bare of all artifice until I was displayed before him like a deer shucked of its skin. I never asked him to go home. It seemed as if I dreamed, as if I had always dreamed, a gauzy film on my brain. When we made love, I burned from within like a star and did not wonder why my stomach clenched at the thought of the burning. Hera was there. Hera was always there, at the dinners where I filled the gods' cups with radiant wine, her knife glinting gold, her eyes a gimlet gleam. She alone of the gods saw Zeus's mark on me. We were alike, two shadows in the court, she a queen and I a pawn. It was she who found me in the gardens which always bloomed and were always heavy with fruit. It was she who pressed a pomegranate seed into my hand, pressed my hand to my mouth, leaned in close and whispered, "Swallow, sweet Ganymede. This is my apology to you." I didn't understand her words. but she was a god. I did as she asked. The seed cracked between my teeth, juices red as blood. The next time Zeus visited me, something was different. It seemed when I tasted his skin that I lay in the grass, that I could hear a river nearby. The smell of him, like thunder and high air, crawled into my nostrils. I felt awake as I had not been before, and Zeus looked into my eyes and knew it. "What has been done to you?" he said. He turned my face in his hands, studied me. "Hera," he said. His brow furrowed, his eyes darkened. I felt in my bones a rumble of thunder. "She has given you something." A seed," I said, as if the words had been pulled from my lips. "The seed of a pomegranate, a fruit that Hera shared with another goddess, one who ruled darker halls." Something inside me quavered. I smelled copper and burning, phantom scents. I tried to pull free of Zeus's hands. He gripped me tight. "You are hurting me," I said. The words echoed in my head as if I remembered them from another time. I pulled away more frantically. Zeus sighed deeply, ignoring my struggles. "It can never last," he said. The storm clouds cleared. "Rest assured, my Ganymede, Hera will be punished for this, and I will find you again, as I always do." His eyes were so blue. They were the last thing I saw. My skin caught fire, and this time it was the heat of a lightning bolt in my veins. I felt each cell burn to ash, just as he had burned me to ash every time before. Not just in my fifth life, but every life that had been except for the first. In that moment, I relived every burning in the midnight glow of Olympus. I am told that Zeus has cast up many constellations of his lovers, of me. Perhaps he thinks it an apology. But when I look into the sky now on clear nights, what I want most is to never see them again. A child should not remember everything that has happened in all its lives. A soul should not live so many times and so darkly. I can feel the times he has burned me, the god of lightning, and all of the times I have displeased him, grown too old, too independent, loved another. And I can feel an older death, that first death. I can feel the strangeness, the terror of being consumed. My body is small still, but I have a knife stolen from my father's belt. I have a sling that I have made and a block of crumbling cheese, flatbread, dried fruit. My skin is pale and prickles with chill in the dark, but I know where I am going. He will find me if I wait until I'm older, until my legs are longer and my muscles stronger. He will find me, and when he looks into my eyes and sees that I know him still, that I remember despite the veiling of death, what will he do? I will not lose my memories again. I will not be his pawn for an eternity. I walk across the hills through scrub grass and stone and brambles to the temple dedicated to the dark god of the underworld, in whose realm I have never ventured. It takes me 3 nights of hunger and sore feet, of hiding by day from the god of storm's eyes. When I arrive, the stars wheel above, and I can see Aquarius, the cupbearer to the gods, a reminder of what I must escape. The stone columns rise around me. I enter the holy cave without fear, and I descend. The first time, the time that I fell in love with the god of the sky, of mischief and betrayal, I was a goddess myself. The memories hang in the back of my head, ghostly and strange. I remember being her, that Metis, and yet I am not her. There is no wisdom in me after lives and lives. Not all of that goddess survived her death, after all. Some of her went into her husband to make him strong. All those lives sit in me like pebbles. A thought, emotion sparks one against the other, and I remember his eyes, his face, the thrill of his power twining with mine, the smell of high mountain flowers, the smell of my skin burning as each death finds me, as he consumes me each time, burns my mortal flesh away, swallows me whole. Such memories can drive one to madness. Perhaps, I think, as the darkness deepens around me, becomes the true black of total lightlessness, as my feet follow the path into the depths of the world. Perhaps this was what Hera intended, madness to find her first rival at last. She betrayed me, left me to die more than once. But that is wrong. I believe that. I know it. Zeus lets no one compete with him, no one sit his equal. Not Hera, not Metis, the self I was, and not his brother Hades on his dark throne, whose gentle wife is Demeter's own daughter. I hear the waters of the river before I reach the shore. The air does not lighten. Instead, some part of me becomes able to see. I wonder if I have died and left my body in the caves behind me. I dare not look back to find out. There are stories of the underworld, of what looking back will cost you. I know all the stories now. The ferryman is gnarled and old. His eyeless face turns towards me. Daughter, he says, this midwife of all dead. His voice should crackle with age, but it is soothing. It hums. I must see Hades, I say, and my voice is high as a child's, but also low, thrumming with forgotten power. Charon shakes his head slowly in what I think is regret. You cannot pass into the underworld, he tells me. I step forward towards the boat where it bobs on colorless waters. I would drink from that depth. I would leave these deaths behind and the lives too, all the oppressive weight of love twisted into bondage. Let me only dissolve. Let the water fill me with cold. I would bargain anything for entry, I say. My voice cracks. The ground beneath me shifts. The waves on the shore become loud, angry. I affirm my resolve, square myself, demand. I have died enough to belong here. The ferryman shakes his head again. There is no malice in it, yet I feel rage threading in my belly, feel it as if I could crack this cave and this river into nothing. And shouldn't I? Shouldn't I at last break something as I have been broken? There is between Charon and I a presence. It should be dark. I had expected the king of death to be dark. But though his eyes are black and endless, he glows like the moon at night, a soothing unlight. I yearn towards it. Metis, Hades says, oh, sister in pain. He towers over my child's body. I long to grip him close. I cannot let you pass, says the dark god. There is already a queen in the underworld. I will have no other. My small knees give out, but when I hit the ground, it quakes beneath me. Here I am not a child. I feel my body attempting to unmake itself under the force of my presence, this human body so small and weak, carrying the ghost of a god. I would let this body die, let it be unmade. But if I die now, will I be propelled into new life? Will my memories be stripped from me? Will I lie with him again, unknowing, joyful, loving my betrayer until he once more takes everything from me? What will I do? I pant like a hind cornered by wolves. In my desperation, I pull at my hair with small hands, tear a chunk of it from my scalp. My blood wets my palms. It is crimson. It glows like red fire in these depths, like rubies in the sun. Hades winces at the brightness. I stare at my fingers, so tiny and frail. I think of what living blood means here in the halls of the dead. I think of how I might hurt him, another god who will not help me. I meet his eyes. I will not go back, I say. It is a threat. I see his fear. He should fear. I will have the realm of death for my own, at last, a place where even Zeus cannot follow me. A hand touches mine, folds the living red away. A face leans over mine, and cool lips press to my temple where the blood runs. I smell flowers, roses, lilac, the bouquet of spring. I smell old bones, grave dirt, decay, and meadow grass. There are green vines growing behind my eyes from a seed planted in my belly only a life ago. I have a moment to wonder at it. I have a moment to think of Hera pressing my palm to my mouth. Not back, says a honey-scented voice. Forward, always forward, dear one. You have one more life to live yet. Persephone, Hades' bride, shucks my soul from my body, and then I fall into stars. I dance there for a long time. All of my reflections are here already, anchors and mirrors. I study myself in each one of them. There, Europa, her lips pink, her hair the color of honey, her belly round with child. There, Io, horns sprouting from her head white as bone, her long hair straight and black as pitch. There, Semele, teeth stained with wine, laughing. She winks at me with mad eyes, a little bit of her son in her still, and I feel in her badness how grief might become something more. How many lives? I see Ganymede, tall and rangy, and Leda with her sword and shield and sad eyes. I turn before each, arms out as if trying on a dress. Callisto is next, breasts heavy with milk, her thighs thick as stone pillars. We study one another closely, gravely. Danae and I touch our toes together, the children we never got to be. She laughs, and no storms come to haunt her beauty. At last, I stand alone, a child in the heart of these constellations, hair dark as obsidian, eyes coals. I look back from whence I came, and I smile. When I come to Olympus, I come as night that swallows the sun. The gods in their eternal feasting stand, cups forgotten. I alight, a black swan, a bear with charcoal coat and eyes like stars, a horned heifer made of pitch. I am a void and I am a woman. Only Hera looks at me with no surprise. I see the bruises on her pale arms. The goddess of marriage, of childbearing, a captured queen. But she has raised up another. I smile at her. My teeth are long and sharp. It is not towards Hera that I turn them. Who? Zeus says, his brow furrowed. There are no storm clouds, not yet. Do you not remember me? I say. My voice is a chorus, a discord. I see the moment that he knows me. I smile again and champ with wine-darkened teeth. He opens his mouth. Thunder rolls on the horizon. I do not let him speak. I am the darkness between the stars, and no lightning could harm me in any case. I swallow him up. His flesh is sweeter than pomegranate seeds. After, Hera and I sit atop Olympus. My belly is already round with the godchild inside, twice conceived, but only once dead. When I place my hand on the taut skin, he kicks vigorously as if he dances. What shall I call you? Hera asks, pouring me a glass of wine red as ichor. Nemesis, I think. The wine is bright on my tongue. My son kicks again. He likes wine too, as I knew he would. He'll be born soon, Hera says after a moment. She sips from her own glass, looking down at the empty heights of the mountain. The other gods had fled for now. They will trickle back soon, seek their place in the new pantheon. I rub my belly, contemplating their return. A god's flesh is divine, the best meal I've had in all my lives. It would be no hardship to consume them all the gods who stood by while the two of us suffered under a king's hands. I only realize I've made a fist when Hera winds her fingers with mine. She smells of lotus blossom and order. I smile, and for her alone, that smile is gentle. I'd be honored if you helped me when the time comes, I say. The endless golden light falls into her eyes, and they shine amber as she kisses my paw.
Oh, that was lovely. We've had two very powerful stories tonight. Something of a theme, I think. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'd like to introduce you all to about next week. Next week is going to be, again, wonderful, a different kind of wonderful, though. It's going to be Shannon K. Garrity and Laura Perlman reading their stories. And we have the fabulous Meg Elison hosting. Meg has actually been lurking here, being hall monitor. And Meg, I'd love to hear what you thought of the stories tonight.
Really wonderful, both of them. And I love the connecting threads of fate and its general inescapability, and the way that wise and knowing women seem to keep all of our lives together, because that is the same in every timeline and every story. So thank you both.
And you two didn't plan it, did you, Amanda, Karen? Nope. Nope. As you say, Meg, it's in all the timelines. It's in all of us. So thank you all for coming tonight. I do recommend checking storyhour2020.com for updates. You can also find a list of upcoming authors and past readings. And there's a Story Hour page on Facebook where you can watch any Story Hour you've missed, any you particularly cherished, as many times as your heart desires. T.G. Anderson and Amanda J. McGee, thank you both so much for making this such a spectacular Story Hour tonight. And as always, who's not here tonight will be here again soon, but thanks to Daniel Marcus, without whom we wouldn't all be here together. And I'd like to thank everyone who's here. I'd like to thank not only Meg, but Tom Marcinko, who is a frequent lurker as a hall monitor, and just thank all of you who are here now, all of you who are watching later, for making this hour what it is, for helping us spin the fictive dream together. Good night.